It gives me great pleasure to introduce Dr. Rick Brown from the Australian Institute of Criminology. He's the Deputy Director and oversees the Institute's research program. He has been a criminologist for over 25 years and previously worked in the United Kingdom and the Republic of Ireland. Rick holds a bachelor's degree in social sciences, a master's degree in research methods and a PhD in criminology. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome from the Australian Institute of Criminology, Dr. Rick Brown.
Thank you, Mark. And let me start by thanking the Commissioner for the warm welcome to Brisbane. And it certainly is nice to be in a warm Brisbane coming from a relatively cold Canberra. And let me start by saying the support that we've received from the Queensland Police Service has been outstanding in the organisation of this conference. And I thank the Commissioner for making the resources available for us to be able to run this conference here in Brisbane. I'm particularly grateful to Inspector Les Bullis and his team for their tireless work and good humour over the past year in helping us bring this together. And I'd like to thank our sponsors and supporters that include Drug and Alcohol Coordination Unit of Queensland Police, the Queensland Police Citizen Youth Club, who will be fueling us with espresso during the conference, and Neighbourhood Watch, who have provided us with the backpacks that you've been given today. So I'd like to welcome you to this, the third Crime Prevention and Communities Conference. The first we held in 2012 in Sydney, the second 2 years ago in Melbourne, and now this one in Brisbane being, as the Commissioner said, the largest, with just under 300 delegates, which I think is fantastic. Now, we've come a long way in terms of crime prevention in recent years, and I think the sustained declines we've seen in burglary, vehicle crime and robbery in particular are testament to the impact that crime prevention policy and practice can have. We also know that preventing crime is a much more cost-effective approach to social policy than increased enforcement or harsher penal penalties. There's now a growing body of evidence of what works in crime prevention that can be found in overseas literature, such as that produced by the likes of the Campbell Collaboration, the Washington State Institute for Public Policy, and the UK College of Policing What Works Centre for Crime Reduction. And here in Australia, there's a growing body of research from universities, from the likes of ANROS and ourselves at the Australian Institute of Criminology that are undertaking projects on the effectiveness of individual projects and programs in terms of crime prevention. And in developing this conference, we were keen to push the agenda towards ensuring the available evidence is used and is being added to by projects presented here. So therefore, I've got a challenge for you. Over the next 2 days, I want to ask yourself, and indeed to ask the presenters, what evidence there is that the projects that they're presenting have actually worked. I hope that what you'll find is that they're presenting evidence-based approaches that are being undertaken. And in deciding on the conference themes, we're also mindful that while there have been some real successes, there remain some seemingly intractable crime problems in Australia, some of which are undoubtedly getting worse. The National Crime Prevention Framework that was published by the Australian Institute of Criminology in 2012 on behalf of the Australian and New Zealand Crime Prevention Senior Officers Group identified 5 themes for priority attention, and these included reducing alcohol-related violence, improving the safety of young people, improving the safety of Indigenous people, preventing child abuse and neglect, and reducing violence against women. Now, I'm sure you'd agree that these themes are as much a priority now as they were when the framework was published. And for those of you who may not be familiar with the National Crime Prevention Framework, we've provided some copies out on the library desk outside, and actually there are copies on the app as well. If you download the app, there are some resources that we've provided from the AIC, which includes the Crime Prevention Framework. Through 5 keynote speakers, 45 concurrent presentations, 2 workshops and a symposium, this conference picks up on many of the themes that were in the framework, including domestic violence and violence prevention, vulnerable communities, drugs and alcohol, and mental health. And there's also an Indigenous crime prevention theme that runs through the conference, and indeed 2 of our presenters keynote presenters will pick up on that issue as well. While we're on the subject of keynote speakers, I thought I'd also echo the Commissioner's opening remarks by noting that we brought together 5 excellent speakers, each of whom are at the top of their fields. And I think it's really a hallmark of this conference that we've been able to bring such high caliber speakers who invariably are extremely busy and in high demand. So I'm very grateful to you for spending the time with us and to share your work. This year, as in others, we've brought together speakers from very different perspectives and disciplines, which I hope will allow us to stop and think differently about how we might tackle some of those national concerns I mentioned. So before I finish, I just want to touch on the theme of the conference, innovative responses to traditional challenges. Now, one thing I'm pretty sure of in terms of crime prevention policy and practice in Australia is that we're pretty good at innovation. In fact, it's often one of those aspects of difference that makes a project stand out in terms of project funding in competitive grant programs. And indeed, innovation is certainly something that we take account of in awarding the Australian Crime and Violence Prevention Awards, which will be announced in 3 weeks' time. But as we now know, simply implementing a good idea isn't enough to guarantee a positive impact. What we need is a sound understanding of the problem based on a careful and thoughtful analysis, an understanding of the way in which a project is expected to work, and sound implementation that draws on what we know of being the ingredients for an effective project. And these are things that I'm hoping you'll hear more about over the course of the 2 days. So what I hope you'll draw from these 2 days is an appreciation for new ways to look at persistent crime problems and hopefully find some sound evidence-based ideas that can be implemented in your local areas, or at the very least, new ways to look at the problems with which you're faced. So during the conference, I do hope that you'll take the opportunity to speak with our presenters and find out more about what they're doing and how they're doing it. And I also hope that you'll use this evening's reception to network and build connections with others that you may not have met before, because it's really through those informal networks that knowledge is disseminated. And that dissemination of knowledge is really at the heart of what the AIC is about. We not only want to create new crime and justice research that makes a difference, but we actually want to get it to be used. So we see this conference as key to the AIC's mission. So to conclude, I hope you'll find the next 2 days thought-provoking, and I hope the knowledge and contacts you gain from this conference will be useful in identifying innovative ways to tackle those traditional problems. Thank you.